absolutely beautiful Mother's Day in the Monterey Peninsula area of Central California as you look at some of those beautiful homes up on the hill surrounding WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Welcome in, everyone, to Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America. If you're at the racetrack, you are certainly enjoying a gorgeous day. And if you're watching us, well, you missed the good weather, but you're not going to miss the great competition of Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America. Welcome in, everyone. Brian Till, along with Ryan Marine. And Ryan, yesterday we saw a great race. This racetrack so iconic. You look at what it takes to go around here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and you got to have a car that really kind of works everywhere. We're on the Central Coast, just inland from Monterey and Carmel by the Sea. 11 turns, 2.23 miles, and massive elevation change. Look at the names of some of these corners. Andretti Hairpin, that's down at turn 2. The Rahal Straight up to the Corkscrew, and then Rainy Curve on the way down to turn 11. Big elevation change, big compression, and Ryan, what goes up must come down, right? You climb the hill from 6 up to the Corkscrew, then it's that dive down back to the front straight.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? 180 feet of elevation change over a single lap, 59 feet alone in the Corkscrew. This corner right here, what an amazing place it is. You drop about 5.5 stories in the span of a few hundred yards. It's a real challenge, that's for sure, but it's one of those challenges that draws the best of the best from around the world on 2 wheels and 4, actually. Great history of racing in this facility since it opened in the 1950s.
Yeah, 1957 to be exact. Before we get to race number 2 of the weekend, though, Ryan, let's go back and visit some of the action from race number 1, and there was certainly plenty of it at the green flag. Danny Formal aboard the number 1 Lamborghini from Wayne Taylor Racing. He leads, but it doesn't take very long before the action starts. That's in turn 1, lap 1. 44 of Seth Henry has a problem. Contact there, and that car gets damaged, and he will not continue. Then a problem for the 77. Drops a wheel, Keon Tendon behind the wheel, and drops a wheel there coming out of the hairpin. Then problems for Hampus Eriksson. Oh, there's the 77 again. That's right, he had 2 problems. And talk about problems, back to green flag racing, but who doesn't go? That's the number 1. That was the pole-sitting car. Hampus Eriksson behind the wheel. They had a mechanical issue, but then things got hot up front for the lead. Nick Persing aboard the number 8. Steals that position. Great pass over Elias De La Torre, and then a big crash for De La Torre in that turn 6. That ended the day. Race finishes under full course caution, and Nick Persing takes the victory there. Great run for him, and I know this is going to close down the championship points a little bit with the number 1 having problems, Ryan.
Yeah, certainly will. That team, that crew, Eriksson and Danny Formal, they were looking like they were set to cruise to their 3rd straight win to start the season, but something went wrong. They dropped to the back and didn't get any kind of representative finish, and that allowed Persing to come through and take the win, his first win in the pro class. And he'll have a great starting spot to try and make it 2 for 2 because he's secured pole position for the 2nd race of the weekend. Keep an eye on his car, of course, the team car to Formal and Eriksson, but they've got some work to do. They start all the way back in row 4, so this is shaping up to be a bit more of a challenging weekend than it looked like initially, given their pace in all the practice and qualifying, plus early in race 1 yesterday.
4 different classes within Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America, all driving the exact same Lamborghini Super Trofeo Huracan Evo 2, but different classes based upon driver experience, Ryan, and I think that's one of the things that really makes this so challenging. You look at the starting grid on the left side of the screen as we're out on the pace lap. Everybody's driving the same car, but you've got a massive experience differential between some of these drivers that are out there.
Yeah, for sure, and the potential of the car is the same regardless of the class. It just comes down to the guy behind the wheel or gal behind the wheel in a couple of cases in this particular race. And as a consequence, you do have pro cars towards the front mixed up with pro-am cars. The top starting am car is actually just outside of the top 10 overall, and that interplay between the classes is a huge part of the challenge in Lamborghini Super Trofeo.
Well, you really need to know who you're racing with. It's a lot like the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, especially in the GTD categories, because you don't want to get mixed up with a GTD Pro car if you're in GTD. Now, we're going to do what we did yesterday here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and that is they had one pace lap scheduled, but with the track being relatively short and you want to get pressure and temperature in these hand-cooked tires, we're going to start the race under yellow. So as they came by first lap, the race clock starts. It's only 63 degrees ambient right now. Track temp warmer than that. That dark surface, brand new asphalt for last year, beginning to absorb some of that heat. But I think this is a really good call, Ryan. It allows you to get that tire a little closer to its operating temperature and pressure before we go green.
As we talked about yesterday, Brian, these cars are really powerful. There's a lot of performance to unlock with over 600 horsepower at the disposal of these drivers. And so you want to make sure everything's in the right operating window, especially when you consider the fact that this is an entry-level series for those in the LB Cup and to some degree in the AM class as well. We've got plenty of drivers with tons of experience in the Pro and Pro-Am classes, but this is a lot of car for those that are coming through the Lamborghini Experience program and into wheel-to-wheel racing for the first time. So you want to make sure everything is the way it needs to be for a clean, safe start to the race. We saw this yesterday, and the result was a little bit of chaos at the beginning, but it certainly wasn't because the tires weren't up to temperature.
I think it's interesting, too, in the Pro-Am category, you have a pro driver and then, obviously, per the name of the class, an amateur driver. And so those pros, when they're in there together, they're going to make these cars go quickly. And, in fact, you look at the front row right now, you have the pro entry of Nick Persing, who won the race yesterday, alongside the Pro-Am entry of the number 69 from Wayne Taylor Racing. You mentioned it earlier. Teammates, you would think that they would have had a long conversation in the transporter before this race about how they're going to orchestrate this start.
Yep, you would sure hope so. Brendan Leach is a real wheelman, though, in one of these Lamborghinis, and he'll want to try and get that car to the front thinking about his own race. But that said, you'd hope that the two teammates would orchestrate this start to make sure they get through the first couple of turns cleanly.
Onto the front straightaway. The number 8, Nick Persing, the blue and red Lamborghini inside. Driver's left, gets to the start zone, and he is on it. Green flag waves. You have to stay in your column formation. Looks like we had a pretty good start. Now the run down into number 2, turn number 2, the Andretti hairpin, and for a moment, Lee a little bit slow on the start, but it looks like he maintains his position. But here's what you got to keep in mind, Ryan. Your nearest competitor in Pro-Am is back on row 3. Don't press too hard. Don't throw this race away early.
Right, think about that big picture. Really good start from the pole seater Persing, and he'll want to pull a gap as quick as he can because he's a solo driver in that pro class, which means a longer pit stop coming his way during that window, and this is what he'll like to see behind him. The battle is on for second and third.
Yeah, right now, Nick Persing enjoying that view, like you said, in that rear-facing camera because he sees his teammate in the Pro-Am class holding up the third car on the road, which is Elias De La Torre in the 29, or no, the 22 now is taking the position. That's Scott Huffaker. He had a good run yesterday. Remember, Elias De La Torre aboard the 29 had a big problem. That's what ended the race. So Huffaker with a good start. He's moved up into the 3rd position overall and 2nd in pro.
Yeah, Huffaker was 3rd yesterday in the pro class. Really good start for that car. He shares it with Jayden Conrad, and good to see that the De La Torre car has been repaired and ready to go. That was a pretty big hit that he took at the tail end of the race yesterday, and not a ton of time to get things back in ship shape order, ready for race number 2 with a relatively early start today.
Look there at the top of the screen, and a little bit of excitement early on. Wow, what a great miss. Couldn't get a car number, but that was, once again, making sure these hand-cooked tires are up to temperature and pressure, and now a problem for the 15. Stalled in turn 11.
That's Cam Aliabadi stalled there in the 15. Looks like he's able to get that car up and running again, but he's dropped to the back of the pack. 38 cars took the start, and he's now shown all the way back in 38th position. The car that had this spin, I think, might have been Darius Trinka. He was shown as stopped on course temporarily by race control. That is the 5th placed car in Pro-Am for Kaizen Autosport. Certainly had some kind of an issue, and now seeing from race control, a few other cars have had some off-course moments, but so far at least, Brian, everyone able to continue on.
Understand the incident in turn number 11 with Cam Aliabadi is under review, so there might have been another car involved. And you were talking about the Kaizen Autosport team of Karlinskas and Trinka. They had a great run yesterday, second in the Pro-Am category, so unfortunate to have problems early on. A good point-scoring day for them, and that's going to help them in that championship.
Yeah, for sure. That's what they're looking for. Meanwhile, this is that battle we were talking about earlier. Two different classes, but front runners both. Brendan Leach, Wayne Taylor Racing, Scott Huffaker with the World Speed team. Leach has the second overall spot, and he'll be trying to keep that track position, build as much of a buffer as he can to the next car in his class. That's Andy Lee now, who's moved up into 6th overall for Flying Lizard Motorsports. And what a day Andy Lee had yesterday, Brian. He and Slade Stewart able to get the victory in class after such a frustrating start to their season at Sebring.
Yeah, when you go back to Sebring, you've got to put those things behind you. We can look back. The driver, Slade Stewart, needs to just focus forward, which is what they did yesterday. Crash in qualifying made that car undrivable for the rest of the weekend, so they did not participate in race 1 and 2 of the season, and that has set them well back in the points. How do you come back from that? Well, you go and you win the next race that you're entered in. I think, too, when you look at the weeks that we had to sit and wait, those drivers had to sit and wait, it just kind of keeps that fire burning and really kind of gets it stoked. So Andy Lee and Slade Stewart, the entire Flying Lizard Motorsport squad, when they arrived here, they were ready to go.
Yeah, definitely, and that's what you expect from a team of that caliber. Andy has so much experience that he can bring to the table as well, and they arrived ready to go here this weekend. Let's give a call, though, to Hampus Eriksson. Didn't have a great qualifying, only started in 7th, but has worked his way up to 4th overall now and sits 3rd in the pro class. This is the team and driver that won the first 2 races of the season in the pro class, but had the difficulty yesterday, some kind of a mechanical issue. Hampus reporting that they just lost drive at one point in the race. We kind of saw that in the highlight package coming to the restart, and that cost them what appeared to be setting up to be a 3rd consecutive win to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, think about Hampus Eriksson, though, Ryan. All of these racetracks are going to be new to him, right? So he has not raced in North America before. He's going to have to learn, and the nuances and the technicalities of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca are a challenge for any driver, whether you're experienced or inexperienced. But certainly, if you don't have time on this racetrack, I think those challenges are magnified.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, he's been to the track once before. Told the story yesterday. He came to watch his brother Marcus when Marcus raced here at IndyCar for the first time. But this is his first time actually getting to drive on the racetrack, and it is a challenging place. This is one where, yeah, you can do laps in a simulator, but the sim, as good as they are, doesn't really give you the full picture for what the elevation change is going to feel like, and of course also the track surface has changed since this track has been scanned in a lot of the sims too. So for all those reasons, this has been a learning experience for him, but he took to Sebring like a duck to water, and that team behind him is there to give him support and help him get up to speed.
Yeah, you can't have a much better program underneath you, as you talk about. They're going to help, and when you run multiple cars throughout the different classes, you've got more data to pull from. So you look at these multi-car programs like Wayne Taylor Racing runs, and that's good for everybody because that is good data that comes to you that you can use. You saw Hepworth there in the number 2. Jem, 24-year-old from Great Britain, learning about Lamborghini Super Trofeo and North American circuits. Again, you got to learn the car, you've got to learn the circuit, and I think a lot of times you get dropped into the deep end. They had a good run yesterday. Our teammate Lindsey Brewer with a good 3rd place finish in their Rafa Racing number 2.
Yeah, not just that, but Jim, I believe, had the fastest lap of the race in class in that race yesterday. So really good performance from her coming over and learning this track for the first time. And really a big part of that Rafa Racing team. Raced for them in GT4 European Series a year ago. Talented young driver, really excited to see what her future has in store.
Rafa Racing involved in multiple paddocks throughout North America and several series of IMSA, and look at the battle coming into turn 11 right now. The 52, the 57, that's Mark Brumman aboard the 52 from 47 Motorsports. Nick Grote just behind. in the 57. So they have a good scrap going right now in LB Cup. Look back to the race yesterday, and Brumman was third. Grote was the winner in LB Cup, and these guys have raced with each other before, and this is the kind of battles that you expect. And I think the problem is at times you get locked in these battles, and we actually see it up front right now, right? With Nick Persing, Brandon Leach, and then Scott Huffaker in there. You get these battles going, and it gets in the way. Potentially, oh, that was big-time contact. I think the 57 of Grote paused a little bit at the apex of turn 5, and Brumman was in the throttle ready to go. The 57 just did not move, and that was big-time contact coming off the apex, and the 57 is around. Nick Grote trying to get that V10 fired back up. The car stalled there on the side of the road, but I wonder what kind of damage he has to the under tray in the back, the diffuser, and you wonder what kind of damage Mark Brumman may have to the nose of his number 52.
Yeah, good questions all. Let's take a look at this again. It was a late move. Brumman saw him coming, and it did seem like you're right, Brian, that Grote just didn't get moving up the hill the way that Brumman expected, and Mark got into the back of Nick and turned him around. This is the points leader in that class. He had won all 3 races to start the year. He's been able to continue on, and we stay green, but this is the first bit of real adversity to hit Nick here this season.
We've got some penalties being handed down. The number 2 has a penalty, as does the 99. Those will both be 10-second post-race penalties, both for the same offense, which is incident responsibility. We didn't see what those incidents were, but that 10 seconds will apply at the end, and if we end like we did yesterday under full course caution, that's a problem. This is a problem as well for, I believe, is that the 99? Yep. Rocky Bulldog there at turn 3, just drops those wheels, does a good job of keeping it straight, and really does a good job of not applying 620 plus horsepower and lighting those hand coupe tires up in the gravel. Kept the car straight, and kind of no harm, no foul.
Yeah, but did drag a bunch of gravel up onto the racetrack, which I'm sure his fellow competitors won't love. This is a big move to the inside by Hepworth, who's charging back up through the field, doing a really nice job, as we said. Really quick, fastest race lap in class yesterday, and just picked up another spot, it looks like. Able to get up into, what, the 5th position now in M, and running 20th overall.
I think that incident between Brumman and the 57 of Nick Grote, I think what happened was Grote made the move and came by, but was offline, so he had to overslow the car once at the apex. And for Brumman, he was on the outside. He was going to cut back under, pick up the throttle. He had a better run through the corner and just did not anticipate how much the 57 was going to have to slow down in front of him, and that's why we saw that contact. Grote around. Going to be difficult to repeat a victory today like he had yesterday, and I would imagine we may very well see some type of a penalty there on the 52.
Getting a report that a drive-through penalty is coming for that contact. Wait to see that come through officially, but it does look like that could be the case. That's a real shame. That takes 2 of the front runners in that class effectively out of this race. Brumman has been a fixture on the podium so far too, and then Grote, as we mentioned, had won the first 3 races, and both of them, it looks like, will have to really scrap to get back into the mix in this thing with 35 minutes to go.
Glenn McGee aboard the number 10, leading in the AM category right now. That's another Wayne Taylor Racing entry, Lamborghini Palm Beach. So it's not just about racing for the teams as well, and we talk about Lamborghini Palm Beach or Lamborghini Austin, Lamborghini Broward, Lamborghini Walnut Creek, Lamborghini Hawaii, Lamborghini Miami. There are a lot of these dealerships involved, and it's one of the things that makes Lamborghini Super Trofeo successful all throughout the world, but certainly here in North America. Watch parties at the Lamborghini dealerships on the weekends. If you're watching right now in one of those dealerships, welcome in everyone. Shame you can't be at the racetrack. What a glorious place WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is, and to have 38 Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evos blasting around This racetrack is a sight to see, and it is a thrill for the senses because the sound is absolutely incredible.
It is. It's probably the best sounding race car in the IMSA paddock, right? You just love the sound of this V10. You know what you're listening to when it goes by. Love what the car looks like, what the car sounds like, and you talk to the drivers, and to a man and woman, they will say these things are an absolute blast to drive. It takes a lot out of you because of the power, a little less downforce than their GT3 cousins, but more horsepower, and you throw that all into one package, and these are some of the most intimidating but also rewarding cars on the grid in any IMSA paddock.
Adrian Kunzel behind the wheel of the 42, leading in LB Cup right now for MLT Motorsports and Lamborghini Greenwich. So I'm sure the people there at that dealership of Lamborghini Greenwich are celebrating right now. Kunzel with a good run to second yesterday. Interesting guy, he's got a lot of experience. He ran with Kevin Madsen at Sebring and Am, best of 6th. So 55-year-old from Great Britain, and has participated in several different IMSA categories, and a problem now for the 57.
Oh, that's not good. That's a second problem now for Nick Grote, who had the spin earlier after the contact with Drummond. And I think we've got a chance to look and see what happened here as Nick tries to recover. Caught some traffic here. This is Clay Wilson he was working on, but all by himself, just goes around.
Well, you wonder, as he rolls to a stop, you can see that the diffuser on the back of that Lamborghini is not really secure like it should be. It's a little bit loose, which means it's going to be moving there on the left side. You can see that one of the streaks is broken, and it may not seem like much, but that is going to change the amount of downforce that diffuser is providing, and a lot of the downforce comes from underneath these cars with those diffusers and the rear wing. So perhaps he got in there, he was a little offline. There's some dust on the racetrack, and you get that combination of lower grip and less downforce. It doesn't typically end well.
Sure, and not just less downforce, but it's sporadic, it's intermittent, right? It's not consistent because it's flapping like that, so you don't know one moment to the next what to expect from the car from a grip perspective, and you can probably attest to that better than I can, just how unsettling that would be, not knowing what it's going to do when you arrive in the corner.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, and unfortunately, you're right, Ryan, I can attest to that, but I won't go down that road. Been there, done that. That's all I'll say about that. Right now, the 4 different class leaders, Nick Persing leading in Pro-Am. It's Leach aboard the number 69, Kunzel in LB Cup, and Glenn McGee aboard the number 10, leading in Am. And if you look at it right now, Wayne Taylor Racing having a pretty good day, I would say. You're leading right now in the Pro category, leading in several other categories as well, and when you run a bunch of cars, that's what you expect, but at the same point in time, you expect your drivers to perform, and right now, Leach is doing so is Persing, and so is Glenn McGee aboard the 10. Wayne Taylor Racing leading in 3 of the 4 categories.
Which is what they did at Sebring too, if you'll recall, Brian. They entered cars in 3 classes there, so there's a potential for 6 wins across 2 races in the 3 classes, right? Over the course of the weekend at Sebring, and they got 6 wins there. So this is kind of what this team does. They have 3 cars in the top 4 overall at the moment. So give a call to World Speed and Scott Huffaker, who are taking the fight to the Goliath of this series, which is Wayne Taylor Racing. Under various names, they have been really strong in this championship for going on a decade now.
So the 52 will have to come to pit road. We thought about that. Mark Drummond will have to serve that drive-through penalty for incident responsibility with the 57. That'll get taken care of. It doesn't help Mark Drummond, and obviously he's got a car right now that I don't think is particularly sound, I should say. It's not as comfy as it was when he started this race. But I think the other thing, you and I spoke about this earlier, and we were just talking about Wayne Taylor Racing, the more cars you run, the more data you have. And when you look at running cars in all the classes, your pro drivers, good battles going on in the Andretti hairpin right now, the 68 and the 4 having at it. The pit window now open. You'll have 10 minutes to get that driver change done. And who did you start? Was it your faster driver or your slower driver? If it's your faster driver, probably going to leave them out there for as long as you possibly can, as long as they are not in traffic. 88, the Pro-Am entry, hits the pit lane. Jackson Lee being shown behind the wheel. They have been through the wars. You see that Fly Alliance signage on the side has a big hand-cooked donut on it. So they have been involved in the battles on the racetrack. Nick Persing's Lamborghini, though, absolutely beautiful, not a mark on it.
Exactly what he wanted to see, starting from pole, and he's building the gap up over 4 seconds now, and he's going to go ahead and come in and do his stop. Now, there's a minimum time that you're required to spend in the pit lane, 84 seconds for most of the cars, but if you're driving as a single driver, as Nick is, it's an additional 3 seconds that you have to be in the pit lane. So what was crucial for Nick was he was able to build this gap up over 3 seconds. So assuming everybody behind him also executes their stops to perfection and his crew does too, then he should come out with the lead still in hand, even though he has the longer pit stop coming his way.
I was going to say, when you said he came into the pit lane with just over a 4-second lead, I was thinking that's the magic number, right, Ryan? I mean,
yep.
3 is the number you got to get past. You know you're going to have to sit for 3 extra seconds on pit lane, like you said. So they have kind of played this masterfully and gotten Nick Persing exactly to where he needs to be. You saw Leach, little wiggle on the brake zone there, working hard behind the wheel of that number 69 entry. And the car really seemed a little bit unsettled there for Brendan under the brake zone, got that back under control. I love the bright yellow gloves that he has on because you can see his hands at work inside the cockpit.
Really quick driver from down under. He's from New Zealand. Busy program this year, racing in GT World Challenge Australia, where he's already off to a really good start, but he's got so much seat time in Lamborghinis, whether it's the Super Trofeo car or the GT3 car. Raced for many years for the Lippert team over in Europe and actually slept on the shop floor for a time, working as a mechanic, trying to help get the opportunity to get some time behind the wheel. And he's one of these plug-and-play guys, especially in a Lamborghini. If you throw him in one of these cars, you know it's going to go fast.
Yeah, he's the 2023 champion in Lamborghini Super Trofeo Europe, so problem there. Turn 3 has bitten a lot of people throughout this weekend, and it happens again. Let's see. There's actually some contact there. I shouldn't say turn 3 gets the bite, but 22 involved in that, and you got to be concerned about keeping the car together. That was Jaden Conright behind the wheel of the 22. And that was just, I think, one of those deals where you're side by side as you get in there, and you feel like the car that was behind you isn't close enough to make that move. You close down to the apex, and you just get that contact. And good thing is the car didn't go around, so good save.
Yeah, it was Cameron Lawrence. Great save, as you said, able to continue on. Lost some track position, but still managed to mitigate the damage, let's say. He's going to try and go as long as possible, you would think. Or did he just climb aboard, maybe?
Well,
in any event.
That incident is under review, so we'll have to see what the officials say. And the 12 and the 48, again, you got to leave room to the outside. I couldn't tell if the 12 on that shot left enough room to the outside, but the 48 off there in turn 6, and that is a scary place. They managed to keep it together and stay pointed in the right direction, Ryan, but for David Staub there, that was the battle for, I believe, 3rd and 4th in AM. Anthony Bullock behind the wheel of the number 12 from One Motorsports, and David Staub with Precision Performance Motorsport aboard the 48. Side by side through turn 6 rarely turns out very well.
As we've learned a couple of times throughout this weekend. But David had a great day yesterday, was able to pick up the win in the AM class, and in so doing, joined his brother Michael as a class winner in Super Trofeo competition here at Laguna Seca. Michael won a racing class last year, so pretty cool there for the family to have some bragging rights at this historic racetrack.
Tell you what, winning here is a feather in your cap. And it's interesting, Ryan, I'm looking now at the incident between the 22 at turn 3 is under view, and I would think that would be the 22 and the 68, but there's another note that says 68, 22, and 8 in pit lane under review.
Well, I'm going to leave that up to the experts to sort out. I'm not entirely sure what transpired.
Yeah, we didn't see any of that in pit lane, any of that action. We certainly saw the 22 and the 68.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, what happened in the pit lane remains to be seen and could have some implications, of course, on the way this race plays out. What we can say is the top 3, Lee, Maury, and Trinka, still owe pit stops here. Just about everybody else has made their stop, with the exception of the LB Cup leader of Steve Cerbero for IMSA Motorsports, down in 12th overall. But so that means we're pretty close to letting this pit sequence cycle through, and then that'll give us a better sense for what the race is going to look like for the final dash to the checkers.
And I think perhaps the strategy on the 14, the Flying Lizard entry, Andy Lee behind the wheel right now, he's turning laps consistently quicker than Trinka behind him in the number 11. And so I think the strategy there is, let's continue to build this lead. Is it a gamble? Sure it is. It is a big time gamble, because if we got a yellow, that would be a very big problem for them. But build as much as you can before you hand it off to your teammate. Give him a little more comfortable lead to work with.
Yeah, what this team doesn't want to see, really at any point from here on out, is a yellow. A yellow before the pit window is extremely bad news, because they would cycle back behind everyone who has pitted effectively. A yellow in the second stint would wipe out this cushion that Andy's trying to build for Slade Stewart in the second half of the race. But like you said, right now, I think this is what this team set out to do. This was the plan. They're going to maximize Andy's drive time. He's the veteran with so much seat time around this place over the years, and hopefully that then gives his co-driver a chance with a big enough gap in the second half, or second third really, of this race, that he can just nurse it to the finish, and maybe they can pick up a second straight win.
Well, rulings coming in now. The 68 will receive a penalty, a drive-through for pit lane protocol violation. Not exactly sure what that is. And now another ruling coming in on the 22, and it looks like the 22 is going to get a drive-through penalty for the incident responsibility with the 68 at turn 3. So here's a look at the turn 3 incident, the 22 down to the inside, and that almost turns Cameron Lawrence around. So the 22 of Jaden Conwright, a former IMSA Diverse Driver Development Scholarship winner, is going to get that penalty, and then the 68 is going to get the same type penalty for a pit protocol violation.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's tough there, because Cameron Lawrence had a pretty good stint, and Werner Neugebauer was really quick at Sebring. I was kind of excited to see what he could do in the second part of this. The other car that was involved in the 3 car, whoa, that was a big moment. But there were 3 cars that were listed for that pit lane issue. One of them was Persing, the pole sitter and erstwhile race leader, but it looks like he's been cleared of any wrongdoing, and he has indeed cycled through to the lead on his strategy. So that's really good news. That's what they were hoping for, as we take a look at this moment again, Brian.
We've seen this time after time this weekend. Well, no, we haven't seen it. I thought Rocky was going to have a problem coming out of 9. He actually had it going into 10. Dropped the left rear wheel there at turn in. I think he just was probably focusing on the car behind him, Ryan, and missed his turn in, dropped that left rear, and that was exciting to say the least. I just saw his hand out the window. Not sure if he was signaling to the car behind him or not, but yeah, that'll take your breath away.
No kidding. That was wild. I was with you. I thought we were about to see a carbon copy of some of those late lunges that you see there sometimes into turn 10, but not this time. That was Rocky just dropping the wheel off there. Pretty good save, all things considered, and it's a big thing too, because he was second and still is in the LB Cup class, so that salvages his day to some degree.
14 is in, and man, they barely got in time. They played that as close as you possibly can. The pit window just closed about 12 seconds ago. So they are in, and Andy Lee will hand over to Slade Stewart. Obviously, that car working for both Lee and Slade Stewart, and now it'll be Stewart that is tasked with taking it the remainder of the way to the checkered flag, see if they can find victory again in Pro-Am.
That'll be the job for him in the second half. Meanwhile, battles all over the place here throughout the pack. Persing should come through to take the lead again, but Formal's not too far behind. And everywhere you look, you've got cars going side by side, it seems.
Seems that these pit stops kind of mix everything up until it settles back down again. Hogan aboard the 46 doing a good job of just trying to stay out of everybody's way right there. This is his first Lamborghini Super Trofeo start for Gabriel Holquin. So good job of just focusing forward, not getting in the way, learning the process of not only driving the car, but how the different classes interact with each other. And there's a big learning curve for these drivers.
Oh, definitely. This track is not straightforward to learn with all the elevation change. Lots of camber to consider in the different corners as well. And some changes in surface with different patches and sealants that have been put down on this relatively new tarmac since IMSA was here a year ago. And then you factor in the challenge and thrill of this car as well. It's a lot to take in for the newbies.
I think it's a lot to take in for anybody, right? I mean,
true.
You were talking about this Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2 that runs in all of the worldwide Lamborghini Super Trofeo series. 620 horsepower, V10 engine, traction control, ABS, and a problem here for the 12. That's Bullock, who's running second in AM.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's early in turn 5 is where that car was around. So see if we can take a look and see what happens to Anthony Bullock. He doesn't see the car to the inside. I think that was the 48 that was involved as well. It looked like the 48 so. To me.
Yeah, that was, I think, the fight for second and third in class, and those tires still have a lot of dirt and debris on them, and so it looks like he's had another issue.
Not where you
Trouble
want to be.
Trying to get out of that gravel trap.
Not where you want to be. Now he's got to get that engine refired, and he's kind of sitting there in the target zone. So he got back underway after the problem that he just had, and I believe that there was just no grip, right? You get dirt on the tires, and it's like 50% of your grip goes away. Going up the hill in a straight line, you don't notice it, right, Ryan? And then you get to the corner and you're like, okay, I need to get through here. I need to get back at it. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And of course, the problem is with that fine dirt on those hand-cooked tires, you're just not going to have any grip. Now he's got to struggle to get it refired.
Yeah, this is really sketchy stuff here. This is a high-speed corner, blind on turn in, and yeah, full course yellow. I think this is the prudent choice here because that car is sitting broadside. It's off the racing line, but if anyone had a little mistake or slipped wide, this car is really vulnerable, and they gave him a chance to get it refired. This is really going to shake things up then. It wipes out any leads that anyone had built up, anyone with those time penalties coming, if those gaps they had worked so hard to build, those go away. This definitely changes the complexion of this race.
Yeah, Nick Persing's lead of well over 2 seconds is gone, and he's going to have Danny Formal all over his rear wing at the start, and it is going to be a wild one. You look down through the leaderboard, Persing being shown leading in Pro, McIntosh, and Pro-Am. Here's a look again at the incident between the 48, David Staub, and the number 12 of Anthony Bullock. And then Bullock, with the problem that brought out the full course caution when he got going again, gets up there, has absolutely zero grip, and goes flying off the road. So that incident between the 12 and the 48 is definitely going to be reviewed, and we'll get a ruling on that as well. But interesting that he could not get this car refired. Usually takes a little while, Ryan, to refire one of these engines. They get starved for fuel, and then you've got a bunch of extra fuel that got dumped in to the exhaust. That's why you a lot of times see that flame on a restart, you know, when they're trying to refire the engine. But I don't know if something has given way in the drivetrain or something like that, but could not get it refired, and that's why we're under yellow, and it is going to be a dash for cash here when we go back green.
Hate to see it for Anthony Bullock. He had finished 4th in each of the first 3 races this season within that AM class, driving solo for One Motorsports with Lamborghini of Newport Beach on that car. This will be a frustrating one for him. Had a decent day going up until that point. You know, I was thinking about this yellow and who this helps, who this hurts. This is not what Flying Lizard wanted to see.
No.
Remember, we were talking about Andy Lee building that gap. I know it still shows Andy's name next to car 14, but that should be Slade Stewart in that car. And all that effort that Andy had put in that first stint, and that strategy that you talked about, Brian, running right up to the very last second before the pit window closed to make that stop, that gets wiped away by this yellow.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, it's just like anything, right, Ryan? You can plan and plan and plan, but once the race starts, you might as well take that file on your computer or that piece of paper that you wrote it down on and crumple it up and throw it away or hit delete, right? Because it may work if everything else goes like you wanted it to, but you control one car. That's it, you know, and so you kind of look at it, and it's great to have a plan, but you just never know. And it looks like, as you were saying, Flying Lizard had a great plan, but now the problem is that full course caution has changed everything. Now, this is interesting. They had pulled the 12 out of the way, and it looked like they were going to refire him. He was going to drive up the hill, but they've had to bring a flatbed in. So this is going to extend the yellow, which means the dash to the checkered at the end is going to be even that much shorter.
That's true, and that ups the intensity level and all the excitement that comes with that. I do wonder how the leaders will play this, though, because there are 3 Wayne Taylor Racing cars, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd overall. The Pro Class leader and Pro Class 2nd place car are 1st and 2nd overall. Then it's the Pro-Am leader of McIntosh that's there in 3rd, and has 1 car as a buffer to the next car in its class. That's the Flying Lizard car we were talking about, Slade Stewart. But we talked about maybe Wayne Taylor Racing trying to orchestrate the very start of the race. How do you play this, though, from up on that pit box? You've got especially two front runners in the Pro Class, each going for a championship. Can you tell them to think about being teammates here, or do you just turn them loose and hope that that there's enough mutual respect that everyone gets through this final dash to the checkers?
Well, you can tell them anything you want, right? You just press the radio button and say it, but it's even more complicated than that as you watch the field circulating behind the Lamborghini safety car. The first car in line is indeed the leader, Nick Persing, but the second car in line is the 49 of Tom Capizzi in LB Cup.
Ah.
And then the third car in line, I believe, looks like the 22. No, it's the 86. There are too many of them that are the same color out there right now. It's the 86. So you've got these different class cars thrown in there, and where are you in the order? Not where are you in the running order as far as timing and scoring, but who's on the racetrack in front of you? Where is the number 1? Looks to me like he's like 4th in line.
That's a really good point. So Persing was able to put a couple of lap cars between himself and Danny Formal, and that gives him that buffer then coming to the restart. That's really a good spot to be in for Nick, who's trying to back up his win yesterday, which came under strange circumstances. Let's remember, the car that's chasing him here today was leading by a pretty hefty margin and then had an issue coming to a restart and dropped out of the race, some kind of a mechanical gremlin of some description. but Persing has had the pace here today. He's here on merit, started on pole, and actually has the best lap of the race right now. This has been a really strong drive from Nick.
He ran with Nate Stacy last year in Pro-Am. Now he's in Pro. 4 wins, 2 additional podiums. So he's been strong. And I mentioned this yesterday, watching that car, and I've got to believe it's the same setup that's on a lot of these cars. He just seems to be one of those guys who attacks the brake pedal. You watch the front splitter go down in the heavy braking zones, and it's a very aggressive initial application of brakes. I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent, but we saw yesterday on Danny Formal perhaps a slightly different approach to the brake pedal. The car not nearly as aggressive, I would say, on the initial application it looked like. And that's just, you know, observations from watching the front splitter on these Lamborghinis under the brakes. You can see the car really kind of move around a lot. It's got good mechanical grip. It's got a good, pretty subtle platform underneath it. But what that allows you to do, if you're a fan standing on the hill and so on and so forth, is watch the way, you know, we're talking about brake application right now, but the same thing with cornering loads. How quickly does the driver move his hands? Is the car, you know, roll into the corner pretty aggressively, or is it a nice gentle feed of the wheel? Different strokes for different folks, different horses for courses, whatever you want to call it. The driving styles are a little bit different. Not saying one better or one's worse, but Persing on the brakes was something that jumped out to me yesterday.
Now that's something we talked about it on the show yesterday too, was yes, he had a different approach, it would appear, to his braking technique than Danny Formal, but their lap times were almost identical. So there's multiple ways of going about it, and I suspect that Nick, I'm venturing a guess here, but he's from San Francisco, so I'm going to guess he's got quite a bit of experience here at Laguna Seca, and maybe he knows some of those little intricacies of the best way to get around this place.
Well, the good news for Persing is, like we said, 2 cars between himself and the #1 of Danny Formal. So right now, I mean, typically I don't see a class split, but I saw cars rearranging themselves that time, and we've got a car out of the way that looks, could have been the 12 that was out of the way there, or perhaps the 28 or the 67. Coming to the green flag this time, lights out on the Lamborghini safety car, and for Danny Formal, he's actually the 5th car on the road right now. 3 different class cars in front of him. Green flag waves, and Formal's not going to waste any time, but neither is Nick Persing. Persing on it. He needs to take advantage of those cars behind him right now and hope that Danny Formal gets tied up with them a little bit, held up a little bit through these first couple of corners. And a car going wide down there. That is the 22, Jaden Conrad, going wide. Keeps it under control, keeps it on the tarmac. And now a problem for the 30.
Yikes. We knew it was going to be frantic on a late restart like this.
Oh.
Car with damage here too.
The 11.
The 11.
Verlinskas.
Tadas Verlinskas.
They had that good run yesterday. It is not going to end well for them today, and the 30 perhaps involved as well. Take a look at the top of the screen.
Well, that's really strange. Car just got off to the right, dropped a wheel, and shot back across the track. And not much Nicky Hayes could do about that one. He was an innocent bystander, and 2 pretty strong cars both caught up in this one.
Yeah, and you see drivers out already, and not the way you want your day to end. We have stayed green, at least for now, onto the front straightaway. Danny Formal working his way forward. Persing still with the lead, and look at this battle going on out of 11. Someone's lost drive, and that's a problem. Oh, good dodge there by the 57.
Wow, that was a near miss. That could have been catastrophic. Not where you want to lose drive coming out of that final corner. Everyone's accelerating away, still in these big packs when you're stuck behind a car or two. You know, you're looking through the windscreen of the car in front of you. Amazing everyone was able to avoid that incident.
Got it back underway. That was the 25, Largatisha behind the wheel. So that car moving again, that's good news, but it really kind of stacked cars up behind, as we were saying, Ryan, and good miss. Big dust cloud at the exit of 3.
Got to drive through that, and now we go full course yellow, breaking off these battles with only 4 minutes and 50 seconds to go, and ultimately it looks like the 30 just wasn't able to get out of this gravel trap. Might have some suspension damage as well, the way that car was hit. We saw that coming to the restart there. That's really tough luck for Nikki Hayes. Let's look at this again. Top of the screen, top left. Car drops a wheel, comes back across the track, and just tags the rear of Nikki Hayes. Nothing Nikki could have done about that one.
Well, he probably thought, what just happened? Did something break in the back of the car? Well, I mean, how did I turn around so quickly? That was like being hit with a missile from behind. He never knew it was coming.
No, you never expect that. I mean, he would have been looking deep into the corner for his apex at that point, right?
Yeah.
Going down to the Andretti hairpin, and all of a sudden the car is lurching the opposite direction. That's a real shame for that team. Had a decent day going.
Well, this is going to be a problem. This yellow right now, if we end under yellow, there's Tadas Karlinskas. That was the car involved. You saw the damage to it, but we've got some penalties coming down. Car 48 will have a penalty for incident responsibility with the 12. That'll be a drive-through. But we also had some other short pit stops for both the 11 and the 68. And of course, the 11 won't matter because he's got the other penalty, but the 68 as well with a short pit stop. And the reason I say it's a problem, we talked about this yesterday, Ryan, when you have a time penalty, if it ends under yellow, and even if we got back to racing here, right? I mean, it would be one of those things where the field is still going to be really close together by the time the checkered flag flew. These time penalties hurt when the race ends under yellow.
And these are big ones as well. So the way the rule works is if you are within a certain threshold, you multiply the amount of time you are under the minimum in the pit lane by a factor of 10 to create a time penalty. So we saw examples of that yesterday with just like fractions of a second or up to maybe a 2-second penalty. But this is a drive-through penalty that's been issued. So that means they were way under the minimum time. And if that can't be served during the race, that gets converted to a time penalty, which is extremely punitive. But anyway, really frustrating into the day effectively for Werner Neugebauer and the Rafa team.
Well, Ryan, are you ready? Because the lights are out on the safety car, closing down on 2 minutes to go. Should be 2 laps that we get in here. So coming into the restart zone, Nick Persing up front, but guess what? You look behind him, where is the number 1 of Danny Formal? He is the car just behind Persing. Teammates heading to turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. How is this going to work out?
Great job by Formal to clear that lap traffic, and now it's a straight up fight here for the final couple of laps. McIntosh running 3rd overall in that purple car, but that's the leader, I think, in Pro-Am. At the front, though, how about that restart from Persing? Now, can he soak up all the pressure that's coming his way? Danny Formal is closing in.
Formal was an animal on the brakes into the Andretti hairpin that lap, closed the gap. What does he have? Can he find a way by in 2 laps? Getting to the rear wing is one thing, getting by is another, but Danny Formal is a fierce competitor. Spends a lot of time still racing go-karts. He's a go-kart champion. And kart racing is all about cut and thrust, take no prisoners, but this is with your teammate.
Have that in the back of your mind. How much risk are you willing to take? Championship lead was cut into in a big way yesterday with their DNF. Formal really aggressive, that shallow entry. Kicks him out wide at exit, but man, he's right there. He's able to keep pace with the leader Persing, who has dominated this race from pole so far.
White flag, they'll see it this time. Formal closes in again at the apex of 11. He's kind of poking and prodding, sticking the nose of that Lamborghini in, just trying to fill the mirror, make motion in the peripheral vision of Nick Persing in front. He wants to try to upset him, get him off his game, have him miss a step, even half a step, find an opening somewhere.
Again, so late on the brakes. Formal, you can see the car squirming underneath him. Persing neat and tidy. He'll know this track well. Half a lap or so to go as he tries to make it a clean sweep. Formal dips those left side tires off into the dust.
And never lifted, Ryan. Kept the 620 plus horsepower being fed by that VP Racing fuel. Never lifted, never thought about lifting. He's got a chance. He's got 2 more big brake zones. One at the top of the hill, coming into the corkscrew. Is he close enough? I don't believe he is.
Persing pulled a gap. He did what he needed to do.
But Nick Persing kind of ran a blocking line in, and that line in cost him time. He wanted to defend, but in defending, he lost a little time. This is it. Right now, this corner, this brake zone. What does Formal have? Persing with the block. It's going to be a drag race to the line. Over, under. Formal picks up the throttle. Side by side coming to the line at Laguna. Who will take it? Nick Persing with the win in race number 2.
6 thousandths of a second, Brian. Nick Persing holds off Danny Formal. What a finish.
Wow, what a finish indeed. That was incredible, and a problem in turn 11. Somebody with a dropped wheel. Looks like we might have a car sideways. No, I think he's gotten back underway, but that race to the finish, Persing was willing to give up a certain amount of real estate to try to make it more difficult for Formal, and he did. And by giving up that real estate, he gave Formal actually that run off of turn 11. Take a look at the line, just how close it was. Wow.
That's something else. And you're right, you know, the line that Persing took, super defensive into the final turn, and Formal knew what that was going to mean, so he adjusted his line accordingly to get the best exit that he could, and it was nearly enough. If that start-finish line was just a few feet closer to the final turn, or a few feet further from the final turn, rather, it would have been Formal's win. Unbelievable.
Hey, we got so focused on that battle for the overall win and in pro that we didn't call the other winners, but they're the unofficial results. McIntosh and Leach, great recovery. They finished 10th yesterday. They take the win in Pro-Am today. You look down there at the number 10 with the win in the AM category. That was Graham Doyle and Glenn McGee. So congratulations to them. They were 6th yesterday. Big improvement today. And then you continue to move into the other categories. Adrian Kunzel with the win in LB Cup. And as we talked about, Doyle with the win behind the wheel of the number 10 from Wayne Taylor Racing as they came across the line. So, wow, what a great one. And I got to tell you, Ryan, I thought when they decided to throw the green with 2 laps to go, I was kind of wondering and I had my fingers crossed. But congratulations to every driver out there. They did a great job of keeping it clean for those 2 laps, that great run to the finish.
Yeah, extremely well done. So exciting, that finish. Glad we got to see that final run to the checkered flag. Wayne Taylor Racing, Brian, does it again. 3 wins in 3 different classes here in race 2.
Yeah, hats off to everybody. Race 1 yesterday, I'll say it, Ryan. I felt like it was a little sloppy, didn't you?
Yeah, a little bit, but you know what? We get the finish that we were looking for, and that's one that we'll be talking about for a long time to come.
Yeah, congratulations to all the drivers. They really turned it around today and attacked this racetrack, not only with bravado, but a little bit of patience. We saw it wane at times, but another great Lamborghini Super Trofeo race. And we're still early in the season. We still have a lot to go, and great stuff from here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. And as we move on down through the season and head to the season finale, like I said, that is a long way away. We'll head to Watkins Glen next for rounds 5 and 6 of Lamborghini Super Trofeo. For Ryan Marine, I'm Brian Till. Thanks for joining us, and make sure you follow the Raging Bulls all throughout the 2025 Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America Series. So long, everyone.